Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Welcome to another Saturday NASM live study. We are continuing in chapter 5, and this is going to bring us into, if you're doing their online course, this is their lesson 3, third lesson in chapter 5, and this focuses on the joints. So previously through this chapter, they discussed the nervous system and the skeletal system, but one of the things they don't do in the skeletal system lesson is talk a lot about or get into the joints themselves. And so that's what we're going to go over today. So remember, if you got any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Well, it's nice having y'all on board today, Mr. Terry, Miss Alondra, Mr. Darren. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to share the screen. And you guys, give me a thumbs up when you can see the screen. Yay. All right, great. So, like I said, guys, chapter 5. Now, one of the reasons NASM does this is they separate the skeletal system, which gives you sort of general overview of the bones, things like that. Most of it is not really relevant, to be quite honest with you, when it comes to both testing, number one, the testing part of it, and the real world. We just don't need to know all 206 bones of the body. It's just not really that necessary from a training perspective. But when it comes to the joints, this becomes more real world, right? Which is why it's separated out. And so I'm just going to kind of go through this with you, make sure you understand what's important from a testing perspective and what you should know, because it's good information and you should know certain things. But trying to memorize the word osteo and arthrokinematics, probably not high on the list, but I will say that it makes life easier when you understand that the prefix osteo, what does that mean? Bone, right? And what does the prefix arthro mean? That's joint. So it tells you joint movement and bone movement. So osteokinematics, and they're just letting you know right up front, there are these two ways of describing the skeletal system and the more practical biomechanics of the skeletal system by looking at the joints. So osteokinematics is what you can see the bones doing. It's bone movement. So I can see my ulnar and radial complex, my forearm moving up and down, right? So I can see that. That's osteokinematics. And then there's what's known as arthrokinematics. Now, arthrokinematics is inside the joint, so you can't see it. So you don't really know what's going on. We know that stuff is happening inside the joint, but what we want to do is actually understand it. And so from a personal training perspective, I'll be quite honest with you, arthrokinematics is really at the sort of understanding, is at the root and the heart of biomechanics. Does that make sense? So when we talk about why you don't go all the way down on a dumbbell curl, why you don't go all the way down on a squat, why you don't do your range of motion, to full extension on this exercise, basically comes down to a certain extent, not only, but to a great extent on arthrokinematics. Why? Because it's inside the joint where we see potential injuries occurring. Are y'all with me on that?
Yes.
As soon as I say the word injury or I use the phrase potential injury, we are right down where the rubber meets the road in performance, exercise performance. Period. I don't care what you eat. I don't care. If you injure somebody, that's that's no bueno, guys. So arthrokinematics is really where we sort of plant our flag from a biomechanical perspective, and that's what helps train us. So if you understand some of the most basic fundamentals of this, you're in really good position to be critical and provide appropriate corrections when people are doing exercises a certain way. Now, look, y'all know you don't go watching, the guy with the biggest pecs to learn how to do a training, right? You guys know that? You're not looking at the biggest athlete, bodybuilder in the gym to learn how to train. That's not how we do it. We use science, and that's what this is helping us to understand. Okay, so there's your definitions. Remember, when you're in any of these chapters, look for the definitions on the sideboard panels, right? And those are your two. I think these are simple enough. Bone movement, joint movement. Now, so there's your osteokinematics. And we could say that osteokinematics is related to kinesiology, right? Which is the study of human movement, right? So flexion, extension, you can see the bone moving. It's when we talk about arthrokinematics that you need to understand a couple of these things right here. So, arthro is a description of joint movement, and that's the interaction of um, two bones or three bones, right? Depending on the joint that we're talking about. The three major types, and this is what you do want to know even from testing purposes, arthrokinematics: rolling, slide or glide, and spin. So think about your like the head of the humerus, right? In the shoulder joint. So the head of the humerus at your shoulder, inside what we call the glenoid fossa, right? So that's the shoulder, and the head of the humerus sits inside there. Well, not only can the joint do this, roll, it can also slide. Can everybody see what I'm doing? I'm way exaggerating. It doesn't do it this much. But this is sliding, gliding, this is rolling, and then watch. It can also spin. Y'all see this? And every joint in your body, every joint, well, joint that's actually movable, is going to have one, two, or all three of those components. You got that? And that's really important to know because there's different joints in your body or that we're dealing with when it comes to standard exercises that we use require an understanding of this. And it's one of the reasons why we don't go all the way down or go all the way up. One of the reasons why we do that. So you have these three components or major types. And as they say here, they don't occur in isolation. They're always happening at the same time in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So in a rolling joint movement, one joint rolls across the surface, right? And they give you these demonstrations. Everybody see that? Simple, I hope. Now remember the other strategy. Not only should you look at the terms over here, but we're looking for bullet points in here, and we're also looking for charts and tables. Whenever there's a figure, that's just giving you a visual representation of what they've written in here. Now, when you get to the classifications of joints, I will tell you this, that from a testing perspective, not the highest level of priority memorizing these. What I would do is I would definitely, write them down, know what a synovial joint is. That's just a joint filled with synovial fluid, is the joint capsule. Basically, the joints that we deal with from a training perspective are generally going to be synovial joints. Non-axial, a gliding joint. And now see here's where it's going to start getting complicated. They're going to show you all of these different joints that from a personal training perspective has very little relevance. Because when I hold a dumbbell in my hand, I ain't worried about the joints of my fingers, my metacarpals. You get it? The phalanx. I'm not worried about those joints. Why? Because I am isometrically contracting and the joints are stabilized. Period. So there's no movement. Is everybody with me on that?
Yeah.
I want to just make sure you get this. Even though there's a lot of information in here on these joints, you can just skim through it, guys. Just skim through it. Because in the real world, I'm interested in my elbow. I'm interested in arthrokinematics at my elbow. Why? Because there's movement when I do a dumbbell curl and when I do a push down and when I do an overhead tricep extensions. There's arthrokinematic elements associated with that. But when I'm holding the dumbbell with my hand, how much movement is occurring in my the joints in my hand? How much movement is occurring?
No, no.
Everybody go like this, a big fat
Zero.
zilcho. So therefore, instead of be smart about your study time, instead of trying to memorize all this, and people do it, don't get me wrong, instead of trying to memorize all of this, read it, sure, look at it. If you want to write it down, that's fine. But you'll notice that there's nothing here really of importance that you need to spend a ton of time memorizing. If you, again, it's really interesting stuff. Don't get me wrong, from a mechanical perspective, absolutely. Hinge joints, saddle joints, right? And by the way, how many saddle joints do you have in your body? Remember, NASM is giving you all this information. They're giving you this broad general overview, but it's just not relevant, guys. It's not. So that's why I'm just going to keep going past here. Non-synovial joints, again, they're giving you information to complete the package, so to speak. How many of you train people's skulls? It's just ridiculous that I even say that, right? And I'm not trying to knock the information. The information is good. Of course, it's correct. But this is just, again, I'm trying to get you to think of how should you be studying this. You look at it, you go, oh, what's a non-synovial joint? Oh, okay. Joints that have no joint capsule, fiber, blah, blah, blah. And of course, these joints don't even move anymore, right? These are known as suture joints, if you've ever heard that term, right? So suture joints. It's one of the reasons why babies, when a baby comes out of the womb, they have a lot more bones than you do. Did you know that? Why? Because all the bones in the cranium are not connected. So they're separate bones. They're floating around. You, as an adult, this is a single solid mass, this entire area right up here, not the temporomandibular, but all of these cranial bones because they're all sutured together. So there you go. So functions of joints. Yes, you'll notice they're not giving you a ton of information, one paragraph. You can go through it if you want, read through it. See how fast I'm going through this? What do you see here? Well, now we get to some decent information. What is a ligament? Guys, you got to know what a ligament is, right? Bone to bone.
Bone to bone, yeah.
I still see people getting questions like this wrong on exams. Bone to bone. Okay. Tendons are bone, muscle to bone. Ligaments are bone to bone, fibrous connective tissue. They're critically important, especially if you know people have had ligament issues and problems. Where do we see the most issues related to ligaments in what joint or joints of the body?
The knee.
The knee for sure. What else?
Yep.
Could be could be the hip. It's the shoulder.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The shoulder. Okay. So where the appendicular skeleton, right? Where you see the beginning of the appendicular skeleton, so shoulder, hips, but in this case, we talk about the knees. This is where we see a lot of those issues and problems related to ligaments. The hip joint is not that bad. It's actually a pretty stable, relatively stable joint because the head of the femur literally sits in to the bony capsule itself. So there is a decent amount of stability, but perhaps if you're looking at the SI joint, for instance, that's a huge problem. And then for sure the knee. So what is collagen? It's just a protein, right? It's the, by the way, if you didn't know it, collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. Does that mean you should take a collagen protein supplement? I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. I think it's a waste of money, but do whatever you want to do. Just, you know what, you know, when you're eating chicken, does everybody eat chicken?
Yes.
When you eat the chicken, don't just eat the meat. Else should you eat? What else should you eat? The top of the bone. You eat that collagen. You eat that fibrous stuff on the top of the bone. That cloudy, yeah, that's all collagen. You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to eat that too. Don't leave anything. Oh man, I need to teach you guys how to eat chicken apparently. Okay, so collagen is the protein found in connective tissue, provides strength and structure. Oh, there it is, most abundant protein in the body. All right, great. Woo. You can use that at kids' parties. Elastin is another protein, but it provides, as per the name, elasticity to the structures that it's contained in. Okay, skin, tendons, ligaments, other structures. Tendons and ligaments do contain elastin. Which of the two, tendons or ligaments, which contains a higher percentage of elastin, would you think? Tendons or ligaments?
Tendons.
Tendons.
Because it attached muscle to bone.
All right. One more. Darren, what do you say?
I say ligaments.
That would be the correct answer. Yeah, ligaments actually contain more elastin. Tendons, you don't want tendons to have too much elasticity, by the way. They're just like cords, they're like ropes, right? But ligaments have to have some elasticity because of joint movement. So there has to be a little bit of laxity as the bone moves, right? And stretches the ligament a little bit. So there is a little bit more sort of plasticity, elasticity to ligaments because they contain a higher percentage of elastin. So there you go. But so elastin gives the ligament some flexibility or elastic recoil. See right there? To withstand the bending and twisting that it goes through. Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So skeletal system life course. This is, again, is it really that important? We're talking about growth plates. Your growth plates, depending on, again, genetics, basically get sealed at a certain age and then they no longer function. Growth plates are what we call the epiphyseal surfaces of the bones. And that's where you're going to see the lengthening of bone. So bone lengthening is caused by the epiphyseal surface or where we have these growth plates. Does everybody see that? So
Yes.
they're just showing you those areas where they extend out and grow along this way. For those individuals, and by the way, that's heavily affected by what hormone? What hormone affects the epiphyseal surfaces directly? What hormone makes them grow? Growth hormone.
Oh,
Darren's like, what? Yeah, growth hormone.
I thought That's
That was a trick. That wasn't a trick question. I only gave you the answer. Yeah, growth hormone.
Question?
And so this is one of the reasons why children, they grow at a certain point. Why? Because their pituitary gland is pumping out growth hormone. Now, your bodies produce growth hormone, as mine does, but there's sort of a dance between the production of growth hormone and the sensitivity of the epiphyseal surfaces to growth hormone. And so at a certain age, and for everybody it's different, but roughly, by the time a guy is how old? You're going to be as tall as you're going to get by what age, roughly? 16, 15. Sometimes people stop growing when they're 14. I've known some guys that were continuing to grow 18, 19 years old. Yeah, but that's a little odd. Women, I believe, will stop their long bone growth a little bit earlier than guys. But the idea is that that's what they're showing you. They're showing you the growth plate, the epiphyseal surface. It was one of the reasons why, incorrectly, by the way, doctors used to tell kids, prepubescent kids, not to train with weights. Did you know that,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Terry? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's going to happen if you train with
Stunt
weights?
their
You
growth.
will
Bro,
stunt their growth. Is that correct?
no.
No.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you train incorrectly and you injure the bone and you injure the growth plate, then absolutely you destroy the very cells that are designed to grow. But in fact, what does resistance training prepubescent actually do? It
Yeah.
enhances and actually increases what we call the hormonal cascade that occurs at puberty. And so you actually get a kickover benefit of having kids do calisthenics and some very lightweight training prepubescent. Because as soon as they hit puberty, there's a kickover effect from that type of training. And guess what gets produced? Growth hormone. Don't get me wrong. Training at 8 years old is not going to make you 7 feet tall, right? Well, there's obviously a genetic component to this. But that's kind of the point, is that we have growth hormone as the major determining hormone in the endocrine system to cause growth at those epiphyseal plates. Once they stop, you're done. You're not getting any taller except through surgery. So not a bad idea to know these things. Any questions on any of this? It's pretty straightforward, yes? And that's why when we get to this part in chapter 5, just go through it, know the basic terminology, but I don't think there's anything there that's particularly challenging, okay? So I appreciate you guys coming on board. Remember, if you have not done so, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you got any questions, put them in the comment section below. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next week.